The story of Abraham and Isaac reveals a God who fulfills his promises through imperfect people. It is a journey of faith, obedience, and trust, even in uncertainty. From sacrifice to blessing, God's covenant endures. Through them we see that true legacy is not built on human strength, but on divine faithfulness. In ancient times, when cities rose along the great rivers and empires were shaped by human hands, a man dwelled in the heart of Ur, in the land of the Chaldeans. His name was Abram, son of Terah, a descendant of Shem, the son of Noah. His life followed the rhythm of tradition, surrounded by silent gods and the comfort of the known. Yet within him stirred a quiet restlessness, a sense that the carved idols could not speak and the voices of men could not satisfy the yearning of his soul. He was a man of noble lineage, husband to Sarai, a beautiful woman but barren. With no heir, no visible legacy, and no notion of the destiny that awaited him, Abram lived under the sky that bore silent witness to his days. Then the eternal broke into the ordinary. A voice, without form, without temple, without image, called out to him with words that would alter the course of history. "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse. And through you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." Abram did not ask for signs. He made no demands. He did not seek assurance. In a world ruled by the tangible, he listened to an invisible voice. His faith did not rest in logic, but in the recognition of a power higher than all human reason. So, at 75 years of age, he took Sarai his wife, Lot his nephew their servants and possessions, and set out toward a land he had never seen, guided only by a promise. The journey was long and weary. They crossed deserts and plains, faced uncertainties, and walked through foreign lands. Canaan was not an empty wilderness. It was inhabited by powerful tribes, fortified cities, and strange customs. Yet when Abram reached Shechem, near the oak of Moreh, the Lord appeared to him again and said, "To your descendants I will give this land." There, Abram built an altar, just a pile of stones, but heavy with eternal meaning. It was a monument of surrender, a testimony of trust, a declaration of faith that fed not on what could be seen, but on what had been spoken. From there he moved eastward to the hills between Bethel and Ai. He pitched his tent with Bethel to the west and Ai to the east, and there too he built an altar and called on the name of the Lord. But the promised land was no immediate paradise. Famine struck the land, and Abram journeyed south to Egypt to find food. Fearing for his life, he asked Sarai to say she was his sister. The Egyptian officials, captivated by her beauty, brought her to Pharaoh's palace. Yet even in Abram's weakness, God's hand did not leave him. Plagues struck Pharaoh's household because of Sarai, and when the truth was revealed, Pharaoh returned her to Abram and sent them away with livestock, silver, and servants. They returned to Canaan with more wealth, but also a deeper understanding of human frailty and divine protection. Abram went back to the places where he had once called upon the Lord and renewed his devotion. Lot, too, had grown prosperous, and soon tension arose between their herdsmen. Seeking peace, Abram gave Lot the choice of land. Lot lifted his eyes and chose the well-watered plains of the Jordan near Sodom, while Abram remained in the land of Canaan. Again the Lord spoke, "Lift up your eyes from where you are, and look to the north, south, east, and west. All the land that you see I will give to you and your offspring forever. I will make your descendants as the dust of the earth, so that if anyone could count the dust, then your descendants could also be counted." And once more, Abram built an altar to the Lord. He did not build cities, nor did he raise armies. He walked, he believed, he built, and he listened. His relationship with God was not mediated by priests or rituals, but personal and direct. With each step, the promise was repeated, and Abram responded with quiet obedience and humble worship. In time, war broke out in the region. Kings rose against kings, and cities were plundered. Lot was taken captive along with the people of Sodom. When Abram heard of it, he assembled a small force of trained men from his household and pursued the enemy by night. He defeated them and recovered Lot, his family, and all their possessions. Upon his return, Abram met Melchizedek, king of Salem and priest of God Most High. Melchizedek brought out bread and wine and blessed Abram, saying, Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand. In recognition of a priesthood greater than any earthly authority, Abram gave him 1/10 of everything. The king of Sodom offered Abram the spoils of war, but Abram refused. I have raised my hand to the Lord, God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, that I will accept nothing belonging to you, not even a thread or a sandal strap, so that you will never say, I made Abram rich. His wealth would come not from human favor, but from the hand of the one who called him. Thus began the story of a man who left everything for a voice, who walked without a map, but with divine direction, who believed without signs and obeyed without knowing the end. Abram, called by God, took the first step on a journey that would shape the destiny of nations. The eternal had reached into time, and by faith the future had begun to unfold. Time passed in the land of Canaan. Abram pitched his tents, moved with the herds, and built altars to the one who had called him. Yet as the years passed, a quiet question began to stir in his heart. The promise had been given, descendants as numerous as the dust, a land to possess, but still he and Sarai remained childless. The silence of the womb stood in contrast to the abundance of heaven's vow. The Lord came to Abram again in a vision, saying, Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. But Abram, weary from waiting, dared to speak the ache of his soul. O sovereign Lord, what can you give me, since I remain childless, and the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus? You have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir. The Lord replied, This man will not be your heir, but a son coming from your own body will be your heir. Then he brought Abram outside beneath the night sky. The stars stretched beyond sight, glittering like diamonds across the vast silence. And the Lord said, Look up at the heavens and count the stars. If indeed you can count them, so shall your offspring be. In that moment Abram believed, not in what he could see, nor in what he could reason, but in the one who had spoken. And it was counted to him as righteousness. But faith does not silence all questions, nor remove all doubts. Abram asked again, O Lord God, how shall I know that I will inherit this land? And the Lord, patient in his mercy, instructed him, Bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. Abram obeyed, cutting the animals in half and arranging the halves opposite each other, except for the birds. Then he waited. As the sun set and a deep darkness fell, Abram was seized by a dreadful and great fear. In the shadows a prophetic word came to him. Know for certain that your descendants will be strangers in a land not their own. They will be enslaved and mistreated for 400 years. But I will punish the nation they serve, and afterward they will come out with great possessions. You, however, will go to your fathers in peace and be buried at a good old age. As night fully fell, a smoking firepot and a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. In that ancient ritual, God himself sealed his covenant, not through the strength of man, but by his own eternal word. That day the Lord made a covenant with Abram. To your descendants I give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates. Years passed again. Sarai, though faithful, grew restless. She had endured long the burden of barrenness, and her heart began to waver. She turned to Abram and said, The Lord has kept me from bearing children. Go, sleep with my maidservant. Perhaps I can build a family through her. Abram listened to her voice, and Hagar the Egyptian was given to him as a wife. Hagar conceived, and tension was born alongside the child. Sarai grew jealous and harsh, and Hagar fled into the desert. But the angel of the Lord found her near a spring and spoke kindly to her. Return to your mistress and submit to her. He promised that her son would be named Ishmael, God hears, and that he too would become a great nation. Hagar gave birth to Ishmael, and Abram was 86 years old. But Ishmael, though blessed, was not the child of the promise. 13 more years would pass before heaven would speak again. When Abram was 99, the Lord appeared once more. This time it was not only a reaffirmation, it was the beginning of something deeper. God said, I am El Shaddai, God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless. I will confirm my covenant between me and you and will greatly increase your numbers. Abram fell face down, and God spoke again. As for me, this is my covenant with you. You will be the father of many nations. No longer will you be called Abram. Your name shall be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations. It was a name of destiny, a name spoken by the mouth of God, sealed by eternal intention. The promise deepened. I will establish my covenant as an everlasting covenant between me and you and your descendants after you. I will be their God. But the covenant required a sign, a mark in the flesh as a symbol of belonging and obedience. God instructed Abraham, "Every male among you shall be circumcised. It will be the sign of the covenant between me and you." And Sarai too received a new name. "You shall no longer call her Sarai. Her name shall be Sarah. I will bless her and will surely give you a son by her." Abraham laughed, not in scorn but in wonder. "Will a child be born to a man 100 years old? Will Sarah bear a child at 90? Yet God confirmed it. Your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will call his name Isaac." He laughs. "I will establish my covenant with him, an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him." Abraham obeyed. That very day he circumcised himself, Ishmael, and every male in his household. The mark was cut into his skin, but the promise was carved far deeper, into his soul, his destiny, and his legacy. The stars that once burned above him now seemed closer, brighter, every one of them a witness, every flicker a reminder. The God who had called him from Ur was still guiding him, step by step, into a future only heaven could see. In the heat of the day, as the sun stood high above the plains of Mamre, Abraham sat at the entrance of his tent. The wind was still, the trees silent. Suddenly he looked up, and 3 men stood before him, radiant yet cloaked in human form. He hurried to meet them, bowing low to the ground, and said, "If I have found favor in your eyes, do not pass your servant by." He called for water to wash their feet, shade to rest beneath the trees, and bread to refresh their strength. He rushed to Sarah. "Quick, knead 3 measures of fine flour and bake bread." Then he chose a tender calf, and a servant prepared it quickly. He brought curds, milk, and the meat, and set it before them, standing nearby as they ate. Then one of them spoke, not as a traveler, but as the one who knew the deepest places of the human heart. "Where is your wife Sarah?" "In the tent," Abraham replied. "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah your wife will have a son." Sarah, listening at the tent door, laughed quietly to herself. She was old, and her womb had long been barren. "After I am worn out and my Lord is old, will I now have this pleasure?" she thought. But the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time I will return to you, and Sarah will have a son." Sarah denied it, saying, "I did not laugh," for she was afraid. But he said, "Yes, you did laugh." When the visitors rose to leave, they looked down toward Sodom, and the Lord said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? He will surely become a great and mighty nation, and all nations on earth will be blessed through him." So the Lord told Abraham of the great outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah, and that he would go down to see whether their sin was as grievous as the cries had reached heaven. Then Abraham, standing before the Lord, drew near and pleaded, "Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous in the city? Will you not spare it for their sake?" And the Lord answered, "If I find 50 righteous, I will spare the whole place." But Abraham pressed further, 45, 40, 30, 20, 10. And the Lord, patient and just, said, "For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it." Then the Lord departed, and Abraham returned to his place. That night 2 angels came to Sodom, and Lot received them into his house. The men of the city surrounded it, demanding to do evil to the visitors, but the angels struck them with blindness and led Lot and his family out, urging them to flee. Fire and brimstone rained from the heavens, and the cities of the plain were consumed in judgment. Lot's wife, looking back, was turned into a pillar of salt. Early the next morning, Abraham stood on the heights and looked towards Sodom and Gomorrah. Smoke rose like a furnace, and he knew that justice had been done. Yet even in judgment God had remembered Abraham, and Lot had been spared. In the days that followed, Abraham journeyed to the land of Gerar. There again, out of fear, he said Sarah was his sister. Abimelech the king took her, but God warned him in a dream, You are as good as dead because of the woman you have taken. She is a man's wife." Abimelech returned her untouched and rebuked Abraham. Abraham confessed his fear, and the Lord restored peace. Abraham prayed for the king, and God healed his household, for the Lord had closed all the wombs in Abimelech's house because of Sarah. Then, as the Lord had promised, Sarah conceived. At the appointed time in her old age she bore a son. Abraham named him Isaac, he laughs, for joy and wonder filled their hearts. Sarah said, God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears will laugh with me. Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age. Isaac grew, and on the day of his weaning, Abraham held a great feast. But Sarah saw Ishmael, the son of Hagar, mocking Isaac. Her heart burned with jealousy, and she said to Abraham, Get rid of that slave woman and her son, for the son of that slave will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac. The matter distressed Abraham deeply, for Ishmael was also his son. But God said, Do not be distressed about the boy and your servant. Listen to Sarah, for through Isaac your offspring will be reckoned. I will make the son of the servant into a nation also, because he is your offspring. So Abraham rose early, gave Hagar bread and water, and sent her and Ishmael away. She wandered in the desert of Beersheba, and when the water was gone, she placed the boy under a bush and sat a distance away, not wanting to see him die. But God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven, Do not be afraid. Lift the boy up, for I will make him into a great nation. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. She gave the boy a drink, and he lived in the desert, growing strong and skilled with a bow. Meanwhile Abraham remained in the land. He made a covenant of peace with Abimelech, planting a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and calling on the name of the Lord, the eternal God. He dwelled as a sojourner in the land of the Philistines, watching Isaac grow, his son, the child of the covenant, the heir of promise. Yet the greatest test of his faith still lay ahead. In the stillness of days marked by peace and joy, when the child of promise laughed and ran among the tents, the voice of God came again to Abraham. It did not come with a promise or blessing, but with a command sharp as a blade. Abraham. Here I am, he answered. Take your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah. Offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will show you. The words struck like thunder. The promise, the waiting, the laughter, it all seemed to shatter in that moment. Isaac, the miracle child, was to be given back. There was no explanation, no reason, no visible purpose, only a call to obey. Early the next morning Abraham rose. He did not delay, nor question, nor plead. He saddled his donkey, took 2 servants and Isaac his son, split the wood for the burnt offering, and set out toward the place God had shown him. For 3 days they journeyed in silence. Abraham's heart burned with unspoken agony, yet his feet moved forward. On the 3rd day he looked up and saw the mountain in the distance. Then he said to his servants, Stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you. He laid the wood on Isaac's shoulders and took the fire and knife in his hands. Together father and son climbed the mountain. Along the way Isaac spoke. My father. Yes, my son, Abraham replied. The fire and wood are here, Isaac said, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham answered, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. And they walked on together. When they reached the place God had designated, Abraham built an altar and arranged the wood. He bound Isaac and laid him upon the altar atop the wood. Then, with trembling hands and eyes fixed on heaven, he reached for the knife. At that moment, the angel of the Lord called out from heaven, Abraham, Abraham. Here I am, he replied. Do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. Abraham looked up, and there in a thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over, took the ram, and offered it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called that place Yahweh-Yireh, the Lord will provide. And to this day it is said, On the mountain of the Lord it will be provided. Then the angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time. By myself I have sworn, declares the Lord, because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars of the heavens and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will possess the gates of their enemies, and through your offspring all nations on earth will be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. Abraham and Isaac descended the mountain. The boy was unharmed, yet something had changed. Faith had passed through the fire, and love had been tested at its most extreme. The covenant had not only been promised, it had now been proven. In the days that followed, the tents of Abraham remained in the land. But in a distant place, news reached him that his brother Nahor had borne children, 12 sons in all, among whom was Bethuel, the father of Rebekah. Though Abraham did not yet know it, the Lord was already preparing the path for Isaac's future. Then came sorrow. Sarah, his beloved wife, died at Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. Abraham mourned and wept beside her body. Though he had been promised the land, he still owned no part of it. So he rose and went to the Hittites, saying, "I am a foreigner and a stranger among you. Sell me some property for a burial site so I can bury my dead." They honored him and offered him the choicest of their tombs. But Abraham insisted on purchasing the field of Ephron the Hittite, paying full price, 400 shekels of silver. There, in the cave of Machpelah, he buried Sarah, the mother of nations. Her tent stood empty, and the laughter of Isaac could not replace the gentle voice that once filled it. Yet even in grief, Abraham walked forward. The God who had tested him had also provided, and the journey of faith continued, marked now not just by promise, but by the scars of sacrifice and the peace of obedience. From the heights of Moriah to the valley of Hebron, Abraham's story had become more than a man's journey. It was a testimony to a God who sees, a God who provides, a God who asks everything and gives even more. As Abraham grew old, his eyes beheld the faithfulness of God. Isaac, the child once laid upon the altar, now walked as a man, yet the covenant still unfolded. The son of promise could not remain alone. A wife must be found, not from among the Canaanites, whose ways were foreign to the Lord, but from among Abraham's own people, from the land of his ancestors. So Abraham summoned his most trusted servant, the one who had overseen all he owned. He said to him, "Put your hand under my thigh. Swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from among the daughters of the Canaanites. Go instead to my country and to my relatives, and bring a wife for my son Isaac." The servant asked, "What if the woman is unwilling to come back with me to this land? Shall I then take your son back to the land you came from?" But Abraham answered firmly, "No, do not take my son back there. The Lord, the God of heaven, who brought me out of my father's household, and who spoke to me and promised me, 'To your offspring I will give this land,' he will send his angel before you so that you can get a wife for my son from there. If the woman is unwilling, you are released from this oath. But do not take my son back." So the servant swore the oath. Then he gathered 10 camels and set out with all kinds of goods from Abraham. He journeyed to the town of Nahor in Mesopotamia, to the land of Abraham's kin. As evening approached, he arrived at a well just outside the town, where women came to draw water. There, with his heart bowed before the Almighty, he prayed, "O Lord, God of my master Abraham, give me success today, and show kindness to my master. Let it be that when I say to a young woman, 'Please let down your jar that I may have a drink,' and she replies, 'Drink, and I will water your camels also,' let her be the one you have chosen for your servant Isaac." Before he had finished praying, Rebekah came out with her jar on her shoulder. She was very beautiful, a virgin untouched by man. She went down to the spring, filled her jar, and came up again. The servant ran to meet her and said, "Please give me a little water from your jar." "Drink, my lord," she said, and quickly lowered her jar to his hands. After he had drunk, she added, "I'll draw water for your camels too, until they have finished drinking." She hurried to the well again and again, drawing water until the thirst of 10 camels was quenched. The servant watched silently, wondering if the Lord had made his journey successful. Then he took a gold nose ring and 2 gold bracelets and gave them to her, asking, "Whose daughter are you? Is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night?" She answered, "I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor." And she added, "We have plenty of straw and fodder, as well as room for you to lodge." Then the servant bowed down and worshipped the Lord, saying, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his kindness and faithfulness. The Lord has led me on the journey to the house of my master's relatives." Rebekah ran home and told her family everything. Her brother Laban came out and welcomed the servant, inviting him and his camels into their home. Water was brought to wash their feet, and food was set before them. But the servant said, "I will not eat until I have told you why I have come." And he told them everything, about Abraham, the oath, the prayer, and how Rebekah had fulfilled every sign. Then he said, "Now, if you will show kindness and faithfulness to my master, tell me, and if not, tell me, so I may know what to do." Laban and Bethuel answered, "This is from the Lord. We cannot say anything to you one way or the other. Rebekah is yours. Take her and go, and let her become the wife of your master's son, as the Lord has directed." Then the servant bowed low to the ground, praising God. He brought out silver, gold, and garments and gave them to Rebekah. He also gave costly gifts to her brother and mother. They ate and drank, and rested that night. But in the morning, when the servant asked to leave, her family said, "Let the girl remain with us for 10 more days." The servant replied, "Do not delay me, since the Lord has made my journey successful. Let me go, that I may return to my master." So they called Rebekah and asked, "Will you go with this man?" And she said, "I will go." Then they blessed her, saying, "Our sister, may you become the mother of thousands of 10,000s. May your descendants possess the gates of their enemies." Rebekah and her maidservants mounted the camels and followed the servant, and they set out for Canaan. Meanwhile, Isaac had gone out into the fields one evening to meditate. He looked up and saw camels approaching. Rebekah, too, looked up and saw Isaac. She dismounted from her camel and asked, "Who is that man walking in the field to meet us?" The servant replied, "He is my master." Then she took her veil and covered herself. The servant told Isaac all he had done. And Isaac brought Rebekah into the tent of his mother Sarah, and he took her as his wife. She became his comfort after the loss of his mother, and he loved her deeply. And so the promise continued, not only in name, but now in a covenant of love between Isaac and Rebekah. The God who had called Abraham, who had tested him and provided for him, now carried the promise forward into a new generation. The days passed, and Isaac dwelled in the land promised to his father. He was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel of Paddan Aram, sister of Laban. Yet though the union was blessed, the womb of Rebekah remained closed, as Sarah's had once been. But Isaac did not despair. He pleaded with the Lord on behalf of his wife, for she was barren, and the Lord heard his prayer. In time, Rebekah conceived, but the children within her struggled mightily. In pain and confusion she sought the Lord, saying, "Why is this happening to me?" And the Lord answered her, "2 nations are in your womb. 2 peoples from within you will be separated. One will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." When the time came to give birth, there were twins. The first came out red and covered in hair like a garment, and they named him Esau. Afterward his brother came out, grasping Esau's heel, and they named him Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. As the boys grew, they became very different. Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open fields. Jacob was a quiet man, dwelling among the tents. Isaac favored Esau because he had a taste for wild game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. One day, as Jacob was cooking a stew, Esau came in from the open country, exhausted and faint with hunger. "Let me have some of that red stew," he said. "I'm famished." Jacob replied, "First sell me your birthright." Esau said, "Look, I'm about to die. What good is the birthright to me?" So he swore an oath and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew. Esau ate and drank, then got up and left, and thus he despised his birthright. In those days a famine struck the land, another test, like in the days of Abraham. Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines in Gerar, and the Lord appeared to Isaac and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land I tell you. Stay in this land for a while, and I will be with you and bless you. For to you and your descendants I will give all these lands and confirm the oath I swore to your father Abraham." The Lord reaffirmed the covenant. "Through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed, because Abraham obeyed me." So Isaac settled in Gerar. But as his father once had, he feared for his life and said of Rebekah, "She is my sister." The men of the place might have taken her, but Abimelech saw Isaac caressing her and realized she was his wife. The king rebuked Isaac. "What is this you have done to us? One of the men might have taken your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us." Then Abimelech gave orders that no one was to harm Isaac or his wife. The Lord blessed Isaac abundantly. In that same year he reaped 100-fold from his crops. His wealth increased, flocks, herds, and servants multiplied. And the Philistines, filled with envy, stopped up the wells that Abraham had dug. Abimelech said to Isaac, "Move away from us, you have become too powerful." So Isaac left and camped in the valley of Gerar, reopening the wells of his father and giving them the same names Abraham had used. But the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled over them, claiming the water was theirs. Isaac moved from place to place, naming one well Esek, contention, another Sitnah, opposition, until finally he dug a well and no one quarreled over it. He named it Rehoboth, saying, "Now the Lord has given us room, and we will flourish in the land." From there he went to Beersheba. That night the Lord appeared and said, "I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bless you and increase your descendants for the sake of my servant Abraham." Isaac built an altar and called on the name of the Lord. And again Abimelech came to him with his officials. Isaac asked, "Why have you come to me, since you were hostile to me and sent me away?" They answered, "We saw clearly that the Lord is with you. Let there be a treaty between us." So Isaac made a feast, and they swore an oath. That same day his servants came and told him of a new well they had found. He named it Sheba, and the town there became known as Beersheba. When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith and Basemath, daughters of Hittite men. But they were a source of grief to Isaac and Rebekah, for their ways were not the ways of the Lord. Yet the time drew near when Isaac would bless his eldest son. His eyes had grown dim, and the end of his days approached. The weight of the covenant, the future of the promise, would soon pass to the next generation. But even as Isaac prepared to bless Esau, a plan was stirring in the heart of Rebekah, and through it the hand of God would once again move, choosing not the elder, but the younger. When Isaac had grown old and his eyes were dim with age, he called for his eldest son Esau. "My son," he said. "Here I am," Esau replied. Isaac said, "I am now old and do not know the day of my death. Take your bow and quiver and go to the open country to hunt some game for me. Prepare for me the kind of tasty food I love, and bring it to me to eat, so that I may give you my blessing before I die." But Rebekah was listening. She had not forgotten the word of the Lord, spoken when the twins warred in her womb, "The older shall serve the younger." And she loved Jacob. So she went quickly to her younger son and said, "I heard your father speak to Esau. He told him to hunt game and prepare a meal, so that he may bless him before he dies. Now, my son, listen carefully and do what I tell you. Go to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats. I will prepare them the way your father loves. Take the food to him, so that he may bless you before he dies." But Jacob hesitated and said, "My brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am smooth-skinned. What if my father touches me? He would know I was deceiving him, and I would bring a curse on myself instead of a blessing." His mother said, "Let the curse fall on me, my son. Just do as I say." So Jacob went and brought the goats, and Rebekah prepared the food. Then she took Esau's best clothes and put them on Jacob. She covered his hands and the smooth part of his neck with goatskins, and she placed the meal and bread she had made into his hands. Jacob approached his father and said, "My father." "Yes, my son," Isaac said. "Who is it?" Jacob answered, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat the game so that you may give me your blessing." Isaac said, "How did you find it so quickly, my son?" Jacob replied, "Because the Lord your God gave me success." Isaac was uneasy. "Come near so I can touch you, to know whether you really are Esau." Jacob stepped close. Isaac touched him and said, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau." He did not recognize him, for his hands were covered like Esau's. Then Isaac said, "Are you really my son Esau?" "I am," Jacob said. So Isaac ate and drank the wine Jacob brought. Then he said, "Come, my son, and kiss me." Jacob went and kissed him, and when Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he blessed him and said, "Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field the Lord has blessed. May God give you heaven's dew and earth's richness, an abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you and peoples bow down to you. Be lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed." As soon as Jacob left, Esau returned from the hunt. He too prepared food and brought it to his father. "Let my father sit up and eat my game," he said, "so that you may give me your blessing." Isaac trembled violently and asked, "Who was it then who brought me food, and I ate it before you came? I blessed him, and indeed he will be blessed." When Esau heard his father's words, he cried out with a bitter and loud voice, "Bless me too, my father." But Isaac said, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." Esau said, "Isn't he rightly named Jacob? He has deceived me twice. First he took my birthright, and now he has taken my blessing. Haven't you reserved any blessing for me?" Isaac answered, "I have made him lord over you and given him grain and wine. What is left I can give." Esau wept and pleaded, "Do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too." Then Isaac said, "Your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from your neck." Esau's heart burned with hatred toward Jacob. "The days of mourning for my father are near," he said. "Then I will kill my brother." Rebekah was told of Esau's words. She called Jacob and said, "Flee at once to my brother Laban in Haran. Stay with him until Esau's fury subsides. Why should I lose both of you in one day?" She spoke to Isaac and said, "I am disgusted with living because of these Hittite women. If Jacob takes a wife from among them, my life will not be worth living." So Isaac called Jacob and blessed him again. He commanded him, "Do not marry a Canaanite woman. Go at once to Paddan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father. Take a wife from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. May God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and increase your numbers until you become a community of peoples." Then Jacob departed. The blessing had been spoken, the deception had been done, but the hand of God was not hindered by human schemes. What he had foretold before their birth, the older serving the younger, had now come to pass, and though the blessing was gained through deceit, the promise would not be revoked. From Jacob, the next chapter of God's covenant would unfold. Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran, a wanderer under the blessing of his father, but pursued by the wrath of his brother. Alone beneath the vastness of the heavens, he stopped for the night, taking a stone for a pillow, and lay down to rest. And in his sleep Jacob dreamed. A ladder was set upon the earth, and its top reached to heaven. Angels of God were ascending and descending upon it. And behold, the Lord stood above and said, "I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and your offspring. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. In you and in your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. I am with you, and will watch over you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I promised you." Jacob awoke in awe. "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it," he said. He was afraid and added, "How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven." Early in the morning, Jacob took the stone he had used as a pillow and set it up as a pillar. He poured oil on top of it and named that place Bethel, meaning house of God. There he made a vow, "If God will be with me and watch over me on this journey and give me food and clothing, so that I return safely to my father's house, then the Lord will be my God." Jacob continued his journey to Haran. There, at a well in the land of the east, he met Rachel, daughter of Laban, his mother's brother. He loved her from the first moment he saw her. He stayed with Laban and worked for him, agreeing to serve 7 years in exchange for Rachel's hand in marriage. But when the time came, Laban deceived Jacob and gave him Leah, the older daughter, in place of Rachel. Jacob confronted him, and Laban replied, "It is not our custom to give the younger before the older. Finish this week with Leah, and then you may have Rachel also, for another 7 years of service." Jacob agreed, and so he took both daughters as wives, along with their maidservants. Over time, the Lord opened Leah's womb, while Rachel remained barren. Leah bore sons, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. Rachel in her distress gave her maidservant Bilhah to Jacob, and Bilhah bore Dan and Naphtali. Leah, seeing she had ceased bearing, gave her maid Zilpah, who bore Gad and Asher. Then Leah bore more sons, Issachar, Zebulun, and a daughter, Dinah. Finally the Lord remembered Rachel, and she bore a son. She named him Joseph, saying, "May the Lord add to me another son." Jacob grew prosperous. The Lord blessed and he acquired great flocks, servants, camels, and donkeys. But Laban's sons became jealous, and Jacob perceived that Laban's attitude toward him was changing. Then the Lord said to Jacob, "Go back to the land of your fathers and to your relatives, and I will be with you." So Jacob gathered his wives, children, and possessions, and fled from Laban. Though Laban pursued him, the Lord warned him in a dream not to harm Jacob. They made a covenant of peace in the hills of Gilead, setting up a heap of stones as a witness between them. As Jacob returned, he feared meeting Esau. He sent messengers ahead with gifts and bowed low in humility. But Esau came with 400 men. Jacob prayed, "O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown your servant. Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother." And that night Jacob wrestled with a man until daybreak. The man touched Jacob's hip and said, "Let me go, for dawn is breaking." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." The man said, "What is your name?" "Jacob," he answered. "Your name shall no longer be Jacob," the man said, "but Israel, for you have struggled with God and with humans and have prevailed." Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." When he met Esau, the moment of reckoning became a moment of mercy. Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. They wept together, and peace was restored between the brothers. Time passed, and Jacob dwelt in the land of Canaan, the land of his inheritance. And Isaac, his father, the son of promise, lived long and full of years. When the days of Isaac drew to a close, he breathed his last and was gathered to his people, old and full of days. Esau and Jacob came together and buried him in the cave of Machpelah, beside Abraham and Sarah. Thus ended the life of Isaac, the son of laughter, the bearer of the promise, the quiet heir of faith. And the blessing passed onward, as it had from Abraham to Isaac, and now to Israel, once Jacob, who would father the 12 tribes of a great nation. In the land of Canaan, beneath the vast heavens and the endless sands, the story of a people continued to unfold, written not merely in words, but in lives. The covenant spoken to Abraham, reaffirmed in Isaac, and now carried in Jacob, had not faded. It endured, eternal and unwavering, because it was founded upon the word of the living God. Jacob, now called Israel, settled in the land where his father Isaac had lived as a foreigner. He was the third link in a divine chain, one chosen to carry the promise of a nation still yet unborn in its fullness. From Jacob's 12 sons would come the tribes of Israel. Each child, a seed planted in the soil of divine providence, would become a root, a branch, a nation. But before nations would rise, the family would be tested. Among Jacob's sons, none was more beloved than Joseph, the firstborn of Rachel, the wife whom Jacob had truly loved. Joseph was a dreamer, and the Lord gave him visions, stars bowing down, sheaves bending before his. But his brothers burned with jealousy. They plotted against him, and one day, while tending flocks far from home, they seized Joseph, stripped him of his robe, and cast him into a dry cistern. They sold him to Ishmaelite traders bound for Egypt, dipping his robe in goat's blood and presenting it to Jacob. Jacob tore his clothes in mourning. He wept and said, "I will continue to mourn until I join my son in the grave." Thus, sorrow entered the house of Israel. But though men acted with cruelty, God moved with purpose. Joseph would rise in Egypt, elevated by the hand of God, to prepare a way for his family in days of famine. The Lord had not forsaken the sons of Abraham and Isaac. He was weaving redemption from betrayal, glory from grief. Meanwhile, Esau, the brother of Jacob, had gone his own way. He settled in the hill country of Seir, and his descendants became the nation of Edom. Though he had lost the birthright and the blessing, the Lord did not leave him destitute. He became a great people in his own right, yet separate from the covenant given to Abraham. Back in Canaan, Jacob's household grew. His sons matured. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, and the rest formed the foundation of a people. Yet it was clear to all that the line of divine favor had not scattered equally among them. The Spirit of the Lord moved with particular might upon Joseph, and later would rest heavily upon Judah, from whose line a scepter would arise. Jacob, growing older, reflected often upon the stories his father Isaac had shared with him. The miraculous birth, the near sacrifice on Mount Moriah, the blessings of Beersheba, the wells and the famine, the day his father had laid trembling hands upon him and unknowingly passed the covenant forward. He remembered the stillness of Isaac's presence, the steadiness of his voice, the way he would speak the name of Abraham not just with reverence but with a sacred fear. Isaac had lived between fire and promise, between surrender and reward. He had trusted when asked to stay, when others went to Egypt. He had prospered in foreign lands, yet kept his heart on the inheritance of faith. In all this, Jacob saw not only the footsteps of his father, but also the pattern of the Almighty, the God who tests, who guides, who provides. And he remembered too the mercy of Esau, the brother he had wronged. In that moment of reunion, he had seen the face of God in Esau's forgiveness. For all that had begun in deception, the Lord had brought forth reconciliation. The days of Jacob's life passed, and his family multiplied. Though sorrow visited his house again when Rachel died in childbirth, giving life to Benjamin, the last son, still he worshipped the God of his fathers. When famine came upon the land, just as in the days of Isaac, the family of Jacob went down to Egypt. There, to his astonishment, he was reunited with Joseph, now second only to Pharaoh. Israel lived his final years in the land of Goshen, comforted that the Lord's purposes had prevailed. And when his days drew to a close, he called his sons and spoke over each of them prophetic words, blessing and declaring what would come of their tribes. To Judah he said, "The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until he to whom it belongs shall come, and the obedience of the nations shall be his." Thus from the line of Judah, through generations yet unborn, would come a king, not just for Israel, but for all nations. When Jacob died, he was buried with Abraham and Isaac in the cave of Machpelah. Joseph and his brothers carried him there, fulfilling his wish to rest with his fathers in the land of promise. So passed Jacob, son of Isaac, son of Abraham, but though their bones lay still, the covenant lived on. For the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob is not the God of the dead, but of the living, and his word endures forever.